The Infected Update. What's up, gentlemen? In today's video, we will be going over the new update that came out recently, and with it came the long-awaited return of the infected units. First off, we need to talk about how you obtain these units, and that is through using black nanopods. These are a tier 5 resource that can be obtained from defeating enemy infected encounters that spawn both at your outpost and on the world map, where you have roughly a 5 to 10% chance to receive one when defeating the encounter. Do note that the exact drop chances are currently being debated, and they could be around that 5 to 10% chance, but I could also see them be closer to 15 to 20%. But most likely it's around the 10% area, which basically means it's like getting a tooth from an animal encounter. Unlike some resources like vials, you can actually purchase black nanos for 5 green nanopods each, which can be helpful in a pinch. When you obtain 5, you can do two things with them. You can either convert 5 black nanos into one singular green nanopod, but this is widely regarded as a gigantic waste and should be avoided at all costs. The other use for them is at the infection test facility, which is the best use for them, and it is not even close. By using 5 of these black nanos, you can choose to infect a dead non-nano soldier or infantry unit and convert them into a random infected unit. These units have 4 tiers where Prototype, or Proto, is tier 1 and it is the worst. The normal variant, which is the tier 2 and it is okay but nothing crazy. Advanced, which is tier 3 and is pretty good. Then Archetype, which is tier 4 and it is the best a particular infected unit can get. The current obtainable infected units are as follows. The Creepers, which is the most generic zombie unit that deals a small amount of damage and is a frontline unit. The Bullfrogs, which are an acid-spitting backliner unit. The Cannoneers, which are an anti-armor unit that is a lot like a tank shot. The Stalker, which is both a great frontline unit and or a backline unit. The Hunters, which are the only flying infected. The Crawlers, which resemble a spider and have both frontline and backline attacks. The Shredders, which are an infected raptor. And finally, the Colossus, which has no prefixes and are a standalone unit. Unfortunately, I am going to leave out the Mauler because we can't currently train Bigfoots yet, so they are unobtainable. In this next part, I'm going to review each of these infected units at their archetype so they are at their maximum strength. First up is the worst, which is the Creeper. This unit is one of the most common results from infected, and it is sad because this thing is awful. It has one attack that can kind of be compared to a raptor slash, but has no armor piercing, no crit rates, and worst of all, it only has one range, so it has to be in the front to attack. The health on it isn't great for a frontliner unit, only getting up to 300 at R6, and has no resistances, but is weak to the fire damage type, taking 25% additional damage. To heal it, it is pretty cheap, just costing gold and steel, which I guess is something, but this unit is still hot dog shit. The next unit is the Bullfrogs, which are a backliner unit that have 2 attacks where they spit acid and deal pretty abysmal damage. But at least it has the bonus of having an indirect line of fire, 50% armor piercing, and deals an alright amount of DOT damage. The health on it gets up to the same 300 like the Creeper, but only takes 20% more damage from the fire damage type, which is still ass, but it is a bit better. And to heal, it is the same, which is gold and steel. This unit is certainly better than the Creeper, but it is definitely not amazing. Moving on, we have the Hunters, which are a flying infected unit that have 3 attacks. The first attack is a land and air attack that is actually alright, dealing pretty good damage with 50% armor piercing and some alright crit bonuses against vehicles and aircraft, plus it has an indirect line of fire, which is nice. The next is an air-only attack that deals very small amounts of damage and a 1x3 attack with 35% armor piercing and no crit rates, which really sucks. The last is a land-only attack, which once again deals pitiful damage with only 10% armor piercing and no crit rates at all. The health on it does get a bit higher than the previous 2 infected units, getting up to 415 at R6, and actually gets a good amount of dodge, getting up to 65. But once again, this thing takes 20% more damage from the fire damage type, which does really suck. To heal, once again, it only costs gold and some steel, which is alright. But overall, this unit is okay. and other than the first attack being alright, the rest of them are horrible. It is also worth noting that the advanced version is currently the best version of this unit that is obtainable, which is hilarious because it's not even that good. The next unit is the Stalker, which is a trooper that's had its arm turned into a blade and has 2 attacks. Its first is a front row slash that deals very solid damage and has 90% armor piercing, plus a nice crit bonus against vehicles, but unfortunately only has 1 range, meaning you can only use this attack when it's in the front. The next attack is a backline slash that deals decent damage with a 40% crit bonus against soldiers that can be kinda treated like a saboteur or a dustwalker, meaning it's like a reverse back row slice. The only downside to this attack is that it has no armor piercing, which is once again unfortunate. The health on the Archetype Stalker is alright, getting up to 330 at R6, but once again it takes 20% more damage from the fire damage type. To heal the Stalker, it is once again pretty cheap, only costing steel and gold, which is pretty good. Overall, this unit is interesting because it can fill the role as a frontline or a backline unit and does pretty well in both situations, although doesn't have a ton of health to survive in the front. Moving along, we have the Cannoneer, which is a guy that's had a barrel fused inside of him and only has 1 attack where he shoots a tank round that deals extremely good damage with 60% armor piercing and a fantastic 45% crit bonus against tanks, which is amazing. He also gets a good amount of health, getting up to 375 at R6, but once again takes 20% more damage from the fire damage type. To heal, however, it is just like the rest, costing steel and gold, which is pretty damn good for a unit like this. Overall, the Cannoneer is pretty fucking strong, and I could definitely see him being useful in a variety of situations. Next up, we have the Shredder, which is an infected raptor that has 2 attacks, the first being a 1x3 claw slash, which deals pretty good damage with 60% armor piercing, along with having a crit bonus against critters and just a high base crit in general at 20%. The next attack is your basic single target raptor slash, but deals more damage, has 60% armor piercing, amazing crit bonuses against critters and soldiers, the same 20% base crit, and best of all, this attack has no cooldown whatsoever and can be used infinitely, which for an attack like this is broken. If that wasn't enough, this thing also gets a ton of health, getting up to 530 at R6, but unfortunately there are 2 downsides. The first is that this thing takes 25% more damage from the fire damage type, and when it dies, it costs gold, lumber, and 2 to 6 teeth, which is kinda pricey, but it's not too bad. Overall, this unit is very solid and is a gigantic improvement from the default Battle Raptor. The second to last infected soldier unit we have is the Crawler, which is a spider type unit that has 3 attacks, with the first being a web spit that deals okay damage with an 85% chance to stun for 3 turns, and has a nice crit bonus against soldiers and critters. The next is a Claw Slash, where it deals fantastic damage with 50% armor piercing and decent crit bonuses against soldiers and critters, and just a high base crit in general of 15%. The last attack is a Sling Down from Above attack, where he deals amazing damage with 50% armor piercing and good crit bonuses against soldiers and critters. He also gets a pretty good amount of health, getting up to 370 at R6, although just like the others takes 20% additional fire damage from the fire damage type, which does kinda suck, but to heal it is pretty good, just costing steel and gold, so it's not that bad. This unit is great, but currently we actually can't obtain the Archetype version, which does kinda suck, but the advanced version is also pretty good. Now finally, the last obtainable infected unit we have is the Colossus. There is only one type of the Colossus, and it is the tanky meathead of the original infected units, and in a lot of ways it is just like the R6 Wimp. He has 2 attacks, where the first is a down the lane fist slam that deals great damage and has 40% armor piercing. The second is a front row punch that also deals amazing damage with 40% armor piercing and has a 40% chance to stun for 3 turns, which is something the Wimp doesn't have, which actually makes it pretty nice. Along with those stats, the Colossus gets a very solid amount of health and armor, reaching up to 565 at R6, and has some alright resistances. But once again, this thing does take 20% more damage from the fire damage type, which honestly isn't actually too bad. To heal, it is just like the rest, costing steel and gold, which for a tank unit like this is actually extremely good. Overall, this unit is really good, but it does have a ton of traits that make it eerily similar to the Wimp, which isn't a bad thing, but it does make you question if it's worth ranking up to 6 when you've already done the Wimp grind. Just before we conclude, I want to mention a couple units that are currently the best to infect to yield the highest tier infected units. The first is the Lightning Dragoon, which gives you an even balance of units including the Colossus. The next is the Bio-Grenadier, which is pricey to produce, but gives you the best chance of getting an advanced crawler along with the same chance of getting a Colossus. But best of all is the Lightning Trooper, which gives you a higher chance to get an Archetype Cannoneer than the Archetype Creeper, which is nice because the Creeper is fucking horrible, plus it still gives you a chance of getting a Colossus, which is nice. I would also like to say that for early game, I would recommend not infecting any soldier units unless they are one of these 3 because it is just a waste. However, at any time, even in late game, infecting raptors to get shredders is a fantastic move because even the Proto is an improvement on the normal battle raptor, so I would recommend that for the early game and or mid game players. To wrap things up, with the post that Alex put out, this event is going on until October 31st, meaning after that, infected will cease to spawn, which personally I think is a bad idea and goes against how it originally worked in OG Battle Nations. Sure, the spawn rates would be decreased drastically, but it still let you obtain these units outside of the Halloween season, but still gave you a bonus being able to get them much quicker when October rolled around again, but I digress. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I have another video planned to come out talking about all the things you unlock with the October 17th patch, so look out for that soon. I hope you guys are all having a great day and are getting all the infected units that you're going for. I'll see y'all later.